Hello everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the History of Video Games. My name is Wes, and I am here, as always, with the wonderful Ben. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing great. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing pretty good, but I'm feeling a little old because when this is coming out, this episode, when you are listening to it, it's going to be 2-year anniversary of us recording this podcast.
Oh, man.
So we are wizened. We have learned a couple things and we have many, many more things to learn. But yeah, we got some special stuff for you guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is it hasn't felt like it's been 2 years. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, in the best way possible. It's flying by and happy for everyone listening. And we are happy that we keep learning and making the podcast better as we go.
Yeah, games are getting better too.
And that makes it a lot easier to talk about them. So, it's it's win-win-win the more we record this and the further we get in the timeline. But for today, we have a brand new second generation console to talk about. So instead of our usual check-in, we were thinking we could get straight into it. What do you think, Ben? Should we get started?
Yeah, let's talk about the hardware and the history of this console.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of background on the company. We are talking about the MP-1000 console, which is a second generation console that you probably haven't heard of, and many people haven't. It's a bit of a smaller one, but it was made by a pretty large company at the time called APF Electronics. The company was named after the founders, Albert and Philip Friedman, who both over the 50s and 60s had experience in the electronics market and with importing electronics from Japan. And in their early life, when APF was making electronics, they focused a lot on the calculator market. But after Pong came out and Atari was making tons of money with that, they decided they wanted to get into the home video game console market as well. And their first clone of the Pong home console was called the APF TV Fun, which actually sold 400,000 units in its first year. So they had a pretty good distribution network, kind of similar to Radio Shack, where they were well enough established that even though it was just a Pong clone, they were still able to get a lot of them out there. But then their next step was the MP-1000, a second generation console, which originally only had one game built into it. And the MP in it, funnily enough, is short for microprocessor. Apparently, from one of the people developing this console, claimed that it was the name they used for it in-house, but marketing couldn't think of anything better. So they just sold it as the MP-1000. But another take that we've heard, because we're not sure which naming explanation is actually true, is there's also another version called the M1000. And the only difference that people can really tell between the two is that the MP has a light on for the power switch. So the P might stand for power light. And that's kind of the two different takes that we have on that. But that's just a little bit of background on how the console got started and the company itself. Ben, do you want to talk to us a little about the hardware?
Oh, yeah. So let's go over some of these specs, because I was super interested to see, is this like a Bally Astrocade level? Is it better? Is it like a 2600? So I was really curious about the specs. The thing that this console has that's really going for it is that the CPU is a Motorola 6800, which we see that in computers, full on just computers. And sure enough, it's probably maybe twice as good, if not more than that, of the CPU in the Astrocade, which was a Zilog Z80, and it's even better than the 2600's CPU. So it's by far the fastest CPU in a home console that we have seen, which is very exciting. Some of the other specs of it, though, are a little weird. So the Astrocade, for example, had 3 sound channels. So I think it could play 3 sounds at one time. At least that's my understanding of how sound channels work. But the MP-1000 only has 1 channel. So that's a little concerning. It also only has 8 colors. And the Astrocade technically had 8 colors as well, but it could combined them or had variations or something. So it's a little misleading. So I'm not honestly sure what these games are going to look like, how colorful they're going to be, but maybe it's just like, I know the Astrocade could only display 8 different colors at one time, kind of, but they could pick from like a big range. So I don't know if that's the same case here. We're just going to have to get into the games and find that out. The resolution was apparently better. It's weird though, because it's not like usually the width, right, is larger than the height in terms of like resolution, because like monitors are wider than they are taller,
Right.
usually. But this one, the height was larger than the width, so it just, everything I think I know about resolution is just kind of thrown out the window. But usually we kind of like look at the width number for like how good the resolution is, and this one's 192, which is almost twice as good as the Astrocade, which was 102 about. But the height is smaller, so I don't know, or bigger. So it's very strange. I don't really know exactly what the resolution is, but I think it's okay. Is my general understanding of it. It also had 1 kilobyte of RAM on the console, which is pretty low. The Astrocade had 4, although in the cartridges you can have 4 to 8 kilobytes of RAM per cartridge. So, you know, maybe that is making up for it, but there's not a whole lot on the console itself. So, that's a little bit about the specs. It's kind of a mystery one to me because some of the specs are like really good. Like the CPU is by far the best CPU we've seen, but if the RAM's not good and the colors and the sound and the resolution's like kind of wonky, that's a little concerning.
Right.
But hopefully it'll at least be running good. I'm thinking that's what this means for us, so I'm okay with that. As far as like what the actual hardware looked like, it was kind of like this wood grainy classic 70s looking console that we've seen a lot of. The joysticks I think are really weird. First of all, they're hardwired into the console, meaning that if that cord like breaks or gets tugged on or something, it's not just like gonna detach from what you're actually holding. Like the whole thing's gonna be pulled out of your hands, which just spells like break city. So I don't know. Some people like it, some people don't. But the actual joysticks, it's like a numpad, but then you also have an actual like joystick knob thing that's apparently an 8-directional joystick, and then a fire button at the end of it. So it's a very strange looking joystick, and another one in the line of having a numpad on there for some reason.
Yes, yeah. And not very ergonomic looking either, we should say. You know, it's kind of like a flat square with a joystick coming out the top of it and a fire button on the opposite end. It's a little weird. I do kind of like where the fire button is, but
Mm-hmm. I wasn't kind of unsure if the knob, the 8-directional knob part, could be like pushed in and out and stuff like we've seen with some of the other consoles, but I don't think it can. I think it's just purely directional. So, but yeah, it's definitely a weirder one. And then there's only one other thing I wanted to mention. I was watching a YouTube video from a YouTube channel called Retro Game Living Room that was really good. And he mentioned that APF is one of only 4 companies to have a console both in the first and second generation of video games, which kind of blows my mind considering how many first generation consoles there were. This is one of only 4, the others being Atari, Coleco, and Magnavox. So it's a little bit of foreshadowing for some of them, but yeah, I never thought about it like that, and when I heard it I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. So
yeah, it's
means
interesting
that they're one of the better ones for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of that had to do with their first console actually selling pretty well,
right?
And having other businesses to back it up. Because I don't think this was one of their main things, but I think for a while their main thing was still calculators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but with that, talked about the specs and what it looks like, we also wanted to get into a little bit of the story of how it was developed, because this is a pretty historically important game, especially in the history of video games, because one of the lead designers on the prototype, Ed Smith, was one of the first African American video game engineers. The second one, in fact, following Jerry Lawson, who we talked about previously, who helped create the Fairchild Channel F.
Mm-hmm.
We should say, too, that this is known African American video game engineers. It is possible that people didn't get credit, but worked on these beforehand. But we definitely wanted to talk about Ed Smith because he's a super interesting story, all of which is written up in this great article on the website fastcompany.com. So feel free to check it out there. But he was born in New York and started out in very impoverished conditions. But he was super interested in electronics, and just following his interests through a whole bunch of trials and tribulations, he ended up landing a job at a traffic light manufacturer called Marbolite. And the interesting intersection here is that traffic lights made the switch to microprocessors around the same time that all the other technology did, because something has to run the back end of it. So Smith gained a lot of expertise in microprocessors and how they worked. And he also went to trade school while he was doing this. So he gained a lot of information with that. And when he decided to further his career and he got a job interview with APF, he was given a schematic, left in a room alone and said, build this. And then they just left him with the schematic, and that was the whole interview. And the story goes that he completed the build within like 2 hours. The guy came back like in 3 hours at lunchtime. And Ed Smith was just sitting there, and the guy was like, how'd you already finish? And he's like, oh, I've been done for about an hour. So
Nice.
So he had all the know-how and apparently got hired right away. When the owners of the company were asked about the significance of hiring a black video game engineer at the time, they said his race never figured into the hiring for them because he could just get the job done so well. So it's amazing that this company back in the 70s was so willing at a time when so many other companies were so discriminatory. But with this opportunity, he went on to be instrumental in the development, pitching, and sales of tons of things at the company, including, of course, the MP-1000. And he is still in the computer industry now, not doing anything with video games. But he even commented on this article as recently as 2017. So he's still around. And yeah, I definitely recommend taking a look at the full story because it's really interesting and it's just really cool to see how important he is in video game history.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, let's head over into the games because we have a lot of cartridges to cover, and we're going to take our time doing it because we don't get a brand new second gen console every day, people. I mean, this is big news.
Oh, yeah.
Hello and welcome back. So, today is our 2nd year anniversary, and to celebrate with us, we have invited back a very special guest. You may know him from previous episodes. He's a good friend and a good watcher of SpongeBob. It is Chris. What's up, Chris?
Hey, Ben. Hey, Wes. Yeah, thanks for having me back for the big 2-year anniversary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got like a special episode too because we're even reviewing a brand new console at the same time. It's like perfect timing.
Couldn't have planned it any better, and we didn't even plan it at all. So that's really saying something.
Don't tell them. No, we're gonna get into these cartridge games. Before we do, I do want to say some caveats with this because all of these games basically had no month dates on them at all. So some of them I'm sure didn't all come out right at the same time, right when the console came out in October here of '78. But we really just don't have a better date for them. Most of my sources said that all of these games were in '78, but I have seen a couple 79s thrown out for some of the later cartridges that we're going to do today. So just take it with a grain of salt. A lot of this stuff, it seems like nobody really knows exactly when they came out. But it seems like they all came out right around 78 or maybe early 79. So we're going to do basically all of the games for this system at the same time, minus one game, which I know for sure was in 79 that we'll do next year. So what we're going to talk about today is basically all the games almost. So it'll be really interesting to see how this console does. And to help celebrate, since Chris is here, we're going to do 5 total reviews. I'm only going to do 1. And then Wes and Chris got 2. So it'll be a super cool episode. And that's why we sped through the intro. So let's hop into it. The very first one is called Rocket Patrol. This one we did not review. It's just kind of an okay timing-based shooting game where basically a spaceship comes across the screen. You've got something that fires up from the bottom that you can't aim left or right or anything. You just have to kind of always hit things in the middle of the screen and just time your shots so you hit spaceships. So it's kind of like not really interesting and is kind of similar to some of the other things we're going to review. One thing that is interesting about Rocket Patrol, though, is that it did come with the system. So it's kind of like not a cartridge itself. It came like in the machine, or maybe was sold together. So everybody got to play Rocket Patrol if you had this console, which is interesting. But yeah, it's just kind of okay. The spaceships looked pretty good, but it was just black and white essentially. So because you're in space, so I don't know. We're just gonna skip that one.
Yeah, not too much exciting going on there, and not so much either with our next one. There was another cartridge for this called Catena, and it's basically just a version of a Go game. So nothing too exciting there, but cool to see it on this console.
Yeah, and the next set of games that were on the console in 78 are a pack of Hangman, Tic-Tac-Toe, and a game called Doodle. They sound like some real winners. Hangman and Tic-Tac-Toe are great on paper, so I can only imagine they're even better in a digital world.
Right, yeah.
And then after that, we've got another one here that we're just going to mention called Bowling and Micro Match. Bowling is really weird. Again, it's like a timing-based game. So your bowling ball is at the bottom of the screen. It goes left or right, like back and forth. And then when you hit the button to shoot, wherever it's at in the screen, it starts going down the lane. So you kind of have to wait for it to be in the middle, then shoot, and then it goes down the lane and bowls. So not really what I consider like a bowling game, but it's okay, I guess. And the Micro Match is just concentration. So we've done that a million times.
All right, we have next the first game I think that any of us actually got to play for the episode.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a double feature on the console. 2 games, Brickdown and Shooting Gallery. So I'll start with Brickdown. It's sort of a classic brick breaking game, but it's oriented sort of left to right rather than I think what you see more often, which is kind of up and down, where you're hitting the ball upwards towards the bricks and you're sliding your bar across the bottom of the screen. This is oriented so you're moving the bar up and down, trying to hit the ball towards the right. I think we all kind of know this genre of game in general. They have 4 what they call games, which are sort of just difficulties, where they're scaling between 8 and 12 layers of bricks, and then each of those has a slow and fast gameplay option. You get points as you break the bricks, and of course the objective is to attempt to clear the screen, or to just get as many points as you can before you run out of lives, which are the 9 balls that you can cycle through in play. Every time you lose a ball behind your bar and you're not able to keep it in play, you lose sort of a life in that way. I like the style of game in general. I think they're kind of fun, kind of mindless in the same way that like Snake is mindless, where even though the gameplay is not super involved or super detailed, you could just play it for a while and kind of lose yourself in just continuing to try to get a better score.
Right.
I thought the game was kind of unforgiving in the way that, I don't know if you guys will kind of get my point here, but when you play these a lot of times, I feel like you can kind of catch the ball right at the end and kind of hit it with the very edges of the bar and kind of just keep it in play a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
There was none of that sort of leeway in this. Like every time I thought I saved the ball, every single time I was so certain that the corner of the bar was going to hit the ball, I died. So it was not giving me a lot of flexibility there. But overall, I think it was pretty fun. It's in color. There's sort of shades of blues and greens. For the bricks that you're hitting, there is sound as the ball's hitting the bar and as the ball's hitting the bricks. So to get into my ratings for it, I gave the gameplay a 3 out of 10. I think that it's fun, and I think that unlike the next game I'm going to talk about, I think it does have replayability, just because you could sit there and play it again and again, and there's nothing that's going to annoy you, and it's not like you're going to feel like you're too good for the gameplay. You know, it's always kind of a challenge, and even if you're able to clear the board, it doesn't mean you'll be able to next time. There were games where I almost couldn't get a single point. Like I would just miss the ball again and again and again, and then other games where I did better. I gave the graphics a 3 out of 10 as well. There are colors, which is nice to have on a console. There's on-screen scoring. There's a countdown on the screen of how many balls you have left. So all kind of the necessities, I would say, of graphics for what you'd be looking for in this game. You're obviously not going to have too much detail because it's just a brick-breaking game. I gave sound a 2 out of 10. There is sound, but it's just bleeps and bloops. Nothing really interesting.
Using the terminology that we use there, I like that, Chris. That's bleeps and bloops are the way to go.
Yeah, it's industry speak.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I want to make sure we're using the right terms there. Relevance, I don't really know how relevant the game is in the sense that pretty sure you guys have covered a brick breaking game already, right? At least once.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did the Astrocade, right? It had clowns
Okay.
too.
So I don't think this is groundbreaking in any way. It might be brick breaking, but it's not groundbreaking in any way. The gameplay is kind of what you expect out of these. There's nothing, I don't think, unique about it that I found. But overall, I think that being on a home console, having color, graphics, having sound, I gave it a 4 out of 10. It's a game type that I think everyone has played before, even if it's just on their old Nokia cell phone or something like that. So I think it's relevant in that way. And then overall, I gave it a 3.5 out of 10. Not great. It's kind of just a basic arcade game, but I do think it's fun, and you could just play it kind of in the background without really taking it too much thought to do that.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know that genre. I feel like you have to really screw it up to make it that bad of a game. But yeah, it looked like they had a pretty good version on this.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough one to mess up. It's pretty simple, but it is fun, I think. I didn't really like the sort of left to right orientation of it compared to the other way around. It was a lot more awkward to move your bar up and down versus side to side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And it on the keyboard for the emulator, it had really natural really natural controls where you used R and F, which is exactly what everybody would expect to move up and down. So really easy that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's Brickdown. Great name. I like how all these early video games are one root word, and then they just have to change the end of the name to make it
right.
unique.
Yeah.
A little legal distinction, and you're good to go. And sometimes not even that.
Right. So the other game that was on this cartridge is called Shooting Gallery. It's a 2-player game. The objective is essentially side by side, there's 2 turrets, and over top of each one, there is a rectangle that's bouncing back and forth between a bigger rectangle that you're within. So kind of think of like almost like a carnival game where something is just oscillating back and forth, and you're trying to shoot it each time that it passes by. The rectangle, that is kind of the target, I'll say, when you hit it, it gets smaller and it starts to move faster. So it has sort of 5 lives or 5 layers, and the goal is to break all 5 layers, so to hit it 5 times. But you get a limited number of shots. So the difficulty kind of scaling for this is that you can select to have 5, 10, or 20 attempts to shoot at it. In a 2-player setting, the winner would be the person who has the fewest shots to break through all of the layers, or the highest score. You do get, I think it's 20 points every time you break a layer, so even if you don't get through all 5 layers, each player would have a score. It's actually kind of hard to get all 5 in the 5-shot difficulty, I found. I would almost always get 4, and then very tough to just hit that last one. It moves very quickly, and it's pretty small. The gameplay, like in that regard, I think would get boring pretty fast if you were playing this for more than 15 minutes. There's no variability in what you're doing. And like I said, once you did get the timing down, if you're an adult with like all of your senses working, you're going to get at least 4 of the layers every single time, even on the 5-shot difficulty. It's almost impossible, I think, not to. So I don't think there's a ton of staying power and replay value here. It is nice that it's 2-player, so you can compete. But even that, I think you would just keep tying. Both players would almost
Right.
always get 4, and then maybe somebody gets a 5th once in a while. The one oddity about it, too, is I don't think the game, and maybe it's just the emulator, but the game doesn't seem to ever end. Meaning that after you shoot your 5 shots and you either break all of the layers or you don't, it just keeps going. You can't shoot your gun anymore, but the game doesn't stop. It doesn't, say game over. It doesn't bring you back to a menu. It just keeps going, and the bricks keep bouncing back and forth on your screen.
I mean, that could have been in there. I could see it being like, you're supposed to press the
Right,
reset
right.
button now.
Reset the console.
I don't know.
And that's basically what I would have to do is refresh my browser every time, because I kind of was hard resetting in that way to get back to the main menu. So I'll get into ratings for this, though. The gameplay, again, I talked through already, but I think I'd probably give it a 2 out of 10 for gameplay, maybe a 2.5. There's just not a lot of long-term replayability here. It's fun for a few minutes, but it's kind of one of those games where once you have the timing of when to tap to kind of fire the gun, there's not much else going on. There's not a lot of variety. And the difficulty levels are kind of pointless, unless, I guess, for like a young kid, but 20 shots to hit this thing 5 times is a lot. Like, there's no reason that you would need 20 attempts. The graphics, I gave a 3 out of 10. There's color, which I think is nice. The turret is purple, like all turrets tend to be. The boundaries on the screen are blue, and then the target, again, changes color each time that you hit it, and the speed as well as you hit through the different layers. The turret doesn't really look like much of anything. It kind of looks more like a building than a turret or a gun, but it is purple, so I guess that's nice. The sounds for this game, they're sort of a laser beam sound. Think like a pew, kind of something like that. When you fire the gun, and then also when you hit the target, but not a lot of variety there. There's no, I think, variety in the sound, or sort of like it's just over and over again the same kind of ping every time you shoot the laser. So
Right.
the sounds don't do much for me, I don't think.
Is it the same sound for when something's hit as when you fire?
It's different.
Okay.
But
okay.
Assuming you're hitting the brick, you're just hearing the same sound kind of like consistently. So
True. Yeah, because that's all you're hitting, right? So.
right. And then relevance, I think that this game has been done in 1,000 different ways before, and in the future, where you have a kind of gun and you're trying to shoot a moving target. Again, I think of like a carnival game almost, like you're just trying to hit something that's kind of moving back and forth across the screen. So I don't think it's relevant in the way that it would be groundbreaking or innovative in any way like that, but the graphics are nice for the time period. There is color. There are technically difficulties, so I gave it a 3 out of 10. And then overall, I think a 3 out of 10 for the game. I definitely preferred Brickdown to this one. Honestly, I feel like if you went home and you turned on this game and you played it for 10 minutes, you'd basically be like, what do I do now? There's not much else going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it kind of sounds like, they're like, hey, we could just do like 2 quick changes in code to Rocket Patrol, right? Is that what it's called? To make it a new game and slap it on this other cartridge. Yeah. And instead of stuff moving across the screen, it's something bouncing within it. But
Right.
What did you think about I feel like this is kind of rare, where the shots, it felt like the shots were like almost instantaneous, like it goes across the screen, right? It's like a laser beam. Mm-hmm. And that is a little rare.
So when you tap, you need to tap at the exact moment that the target is like in alignment with the gun, because to your point, it just immediately hits it. There's no delay. The shot isn't traveling. It's just there.
Oh, wow.
I kind of like that because it's like, I don't know, it feels like it's almost like super responsive then.
Yeah.
I guess if there is like a little bit of delay, it'd be really bad.
Right. I think it helps with being able to successfully get the timing down and kind of have a feel for it, for sure.
Yeah, it's one less variable in your timing, not just the delay in the shot or the bullet travel time, but also the you're just doing where the position is. That's interesting.
Right.
We could say it's the relevant for being the origin of hit scan guns in games,
Right.
Oh.
I feel like that is giving it way too much credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Chris, as a complete package with these games, do you think like would you have rather have like one more breakout variation, or would you do you kind of like that they're kind of two different things in one, that you're getting like you're paying your money, you're getting kind of almost two games?
Yeah, I think it's worth having more variety and having distinct games. I think that what I've seen in a lot of these early games, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way, but they're constantly telling you how many games they're giving you, and it's really one game, but they're calling it 18 somehow. So at least this is two distinct games and not just like, oh, now it's Brickdown with 2 balls.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's probably better.
Okay, good.
Yeah, makes sense. So there you go. That's right now sitting on the top of our list for value cartridge of the system.
Most bang.
You tell me Hangman, Tic-Tac-Toe, and Doodle?
I mean, you get to Doodle, that's infinite gameplay. So I don't know.
That's true.
But I think I want to get into the first game that I got to cover, just a single feature this time, but it is baseball, which is always exciting to see baseball games, to see how they evolve and to see how quickly we get to MLB The Show. Which we're still a while away from, but this is just a standard baseball game on the MP-1000 that was either 2-player or 1-player versus computer. And since it's not on an arcade and they're not trying to get tons of your coins to keep playing, it does play a full 9 innings, which is really nice.
Nice.
They also made a note in the manual, which I didn't think about, but this probably happens in most consoles. They're like, whichever controller you and the other player are using, you don't have to switch controllers when like infield and outfield switch. Like the game just understands. So, and I'm pretty sure older consoles, like, infield and outfield just kind of stay where they are. And it's like, now you're doing this and now you're doing that. Especially on the Odyssey when you used to hand score the games instead of it being scored there. So
right.
I don't know if that's monumental, but I was like, okay, that's nice. And they pointed it out because they know it's a cool feature. But other than that, I mean, it kind of just plays a standard game of baseball, which in itself is, in these early stages, always pretty impressive when they don't have to just like delete rules of how the game works to make it simple enough for a computer to run. This is home console baseball that actually has 4 different pitches, has fouls, it has strikes, it has balls, everything, maybe bunting, not really bunting actually, but pretty much all you would want from the infield. You can also control the outfield a little bit. So it kind of plays a pretty full game of baseball, which is really nice. And when you're in infield, all you're doing is really timing your swings to hit homers. There's not really much else that you're doing for that. And then outfield, you're pretty much just pitching. But either way, it's still a decent amount of gameplay for a home console version of it. And since there's not much else to say about how baseball plays, because that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge anyway. So I think I'm going to get into my ratings for this. For graphics, I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. It looks really good compared to other home console baseball games that we've seen, especially comparing it to the relatively recent home run for the Atari 2600, which was just like 4 guys on a field, I think. Like there wasn't much going on there at all. And this actually has, I think, 8 outfielders, maybe. There's one on each base and maybe like 4 outfielders and then the pitcher. And then your character is just a bat when you're up to bat. There's no character actually swinging the bat, but still a lot more detail than previous console baseball games that we've seen. And you can clearly tell that it's a game of baseball, which is also nice in this age. It's not too hard to tell what's going on. And this console really does a good job, sort of like Chris mentioned, with having a lot of different colors on the screen at once. So there was the green for the field, brown for the diamond, and then there's also the fans, which are in the stadium or in the stands, which is really nice. They have like orange and purple color and are just as detailed as all the other characters on screen, but different colors, which is really nice. And then blues and reds and whites for all the players on the field. So at least I think 5 or 6 colors on the screen at a time. So it makes it really look a lot more vibrant than previous stuff that we've seen too. The character models are also pretty good, even though they're pretty simple. I mean, they're kind of just like arms going straight down and legs in like an upside down U, but they actually have arms and legs and a head, which is saying something. I mean, can't knock on that. So, and you can definitely tell with this compared to the Atari 2600 that there are a lot more pixels on screen. As we mentioned in the intro, this does have, we think, because it's a weird resolution, but we think a higher resolution than a lot of the other consoles that we've seen. So it's nice that they're able to really add a lot more, a fair bit more detail into there. The animations, though, are pretty disappointing. It's just 2 different sprites. And instead of like alternating between them really quickly to make it look like the person's running, it just switches to the running sprite, which is like one leg straight out to the ground. And then that just like flies across the screen. So there's no like illusion of animation. It just kind of like switches to look different and then moves. I mean, they make it like hop across the screen instead of like smoothly just flying. So it kind of, there's some movement, but it doesn't look great, really. And even though we aren't too much in the habit of mentioning scoring and display information to bump up the graphics score, it's really good in this game. So I thought I needed to mention it. It's a very clear display in the top left of the screen that just looks exactly like a normal baseball scoreboard. Gives you all the necessary information of balls, strikes, outs, runs, all that. And then on the right side of the screen, there's this status section, which just basically tells you whatever happened during each play, which since the game kind of auto plays out after you hit the ball, it's nice that it'll, even though everything happens pretty fast, you'll get to see whether it's a single or double or whether it's a home run, or if somebody caught it and it's an out. So it's just nice to have that little extra detail telling you what happened each play. For sounds, though, I was super disappointed with these. So I gave it a 0.5 out of 10. As far as I heard, there are only 2 sounds in baseball. 1 beep for hitting and 1 beep for an out. And considering like, I mean, hitting the ball and an out happen pretty often, but not all the time. It's a very silent game of baseball. It's just the beeps for hitting the ball, and I don't know, unless there's some special music for a grand slam that I missed because I never got one. It seems pretty bland to me, so nothing great going on there. But the gameplay I did think was pretty fun, so I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. It's just overall smooth and pretty fun game of baseball. I mean, there's a couple weirdness things that held it back from being great for me. You can only position your outfielders before you pitch, as far as I could tell. So like during the play, you can't, or after the ball's been hit, you can't move them around to catch it, which I kind of like because the field's really small. So it would probably be super easy to just catch every single ball unless the game decided it was a ground ball or something. But it also just feels really clunky. Like I'm just like putting my outfielders on one side of the field and guessing that somebody's going to hit to that side. Whereas like if I was playing with 2 people and the other player just saw me put my outfielders over there and they were good enough, they'd be like, okay, well, I'll just hit in the opening you just made on the other side of the screen. So that was a little weird for gameplay. And also the pitcher is very close to the batter. It might just be because I was really bad at the game and I need some time to learn it. But it felt like I had no time to react to whether he was throwing a ball or whether he was throwing a fastball right down the center. So I ended up just swinging at everything. I mean, he could have walked me, but I got so many strikeouts on that pitcher
Can it do that thing where it can change speed like in the middle of a throw?
No,
Because
no.
we've seen that.
Yes, yeah. I forget which one that was. I think that was a console game.
Yeah, I think maybe the Astrocade one.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
No, this just has 4 different pitches based on where you move the joystick. I think it's like screwball, curveball, fastball, and then like a slow ball, just like down the center.
Oh, so when you pick one, does it just go in that set path, or do you actually like can you move it left and right manually?
As far as I could tell, it just goes.
Oh.
Although I'm not positive because that would mean one of them is just always a ball, because there was one that just always went like wide right of the batter. So I didn't see anything in the directions though about steering the pitch, and I wasn't able to when I played it. So yeah, I think it just kind of pitches it whichever way, which isn't too much variation there. But overall, it's still just for a console, gameplay wise, pretty smooth gameplay, even though it just kind of breaks down to hitting and pitching, really. For relevance, I ended up giving it a 4 out of 10. I think this game could have been pretty popular for people who had the console. I mean, it kind of just plays like a easy to understand, competent game of baseball, which is super identifiable. And I'm still surprised by how unknown this console is. But I feel like this game might have been one of the popular ones on the console just because it's definitely better than Atari's try at baseball in '78. So even though I don't know if it has much influence on other games in the future, I do feel like it's kind of a decent step forward for console baseball games. So overall, that left me with a 2.25 out of 10. Getting into nitty gritty ratings this episode, it's just a really good looking and feeling baseball game for a console in 1978, but with very underwhelming sounds, which kind of knock it back a couple of scores for me. The computer also seems very easy to predict, especially with their hitting. Like I was just throwing fastballs nonstop, but they always hit it to the same spot, so I caught every single one. But with 2 players, I think it would definitely be a pretty good time because it just kind of plays a decent game of baseball. That is, yeah, all I had for it. It's, I don't know, kind of just nice and simple, you know?
Do you see any direct influences on the backyard baseball series coming out of this one, Wes?
Oof. I mean, I don't know. These guys look like they could have been children. So that's backyard baseball, right?
Yeah. So definitely possible.
Yeah.
It's a direct influence.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna erase that and write it back as a 10 out of 10 relevance real quick.
Yeah, the calling card of backyard baseball, and I think the backyard sports genre in general is Pablo Sanchez, who is like a 6-year-old with a beer belly. So if you saw anything like that in the game, then that might have been an influence.
Gotcha.
As well.
I mean, they might have been trying, but I don't think the technology's there yet.
Right. Makes sense.
So do you want to carry us on to the next game we got today, Chris?
Yeah, buckle up because this one is a doozy. For 1978, the next game on the console we're going to cover is Backgammon.
Oof.
And the show notes here really say it all. Quote, "It's backgammon." And I think that's pretty much what you need to know here. It played a classic game of backgammon. It did feature the triangle pointed board, which we've seen most other versions of backgammon not able to render. So maybe a little technological advancement has happened in the backgammon genre in 1978.
Yeah, it can do triangles now.
Right. Yeah, it's big stuff. Nature's strongest shape, I believe, right? Or is it the pentagon?
I mean,
I've got no
you
clue.
told me triangle and I'd believe it because of like suspension bridges and all that, right? But I don't know. we specialize
Is the
in
spider
video
web an answer?
That's not a shape, I don't think, but I did just confirm with a quick internet search. I won't confirm the browser since we're not sponsored yet by anyone in particular, but the triangle is in fact the strongest shape. That's why it's a favorite among architects.
That's why it's a favorite among backgammon players.
I've heard the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. Make strong plays on that board.
This article also notes that the triangle is similar to what you would look for maybe in a romantic partner because it has a strong base and provides immense support. So Great shape overall. Yeah.
I mean, we started today just talking about video games, but really there's so much to learn when you jump into the History of Video Games podcast. And
it's true.
Continue with this depth of knowledge, the next cartridge is Casino 1, which is roulette, Keno, which I'm not sure, might be a type of card game, and slots, just an assorted jumble of casino games, but stuff that we've pretty much seen before.
Stuff that aren't really games because they're all just gambling.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But it's okay. Weirdly enough, I don't think Casino 2 was ever a cartridge. So they're just like, this one's Casino 1. That's it.
they were anticipating it, but I never had the chance.
Yeah, it didn't pan out.
All right. So this next one is the one that I got to rate. It's like one of these ones that has a lot of games on one cartridge. So we've got the game UFO, the game Sea Monster, then Break It Down, Rebuild, and Shoot. So there's like 5 different games here.
And those last 3 sound like they could be all part of a series.
Yeah, it's a trilogy.
They kind of are. Let me talk about what the games are. So let's start out with the UFO. That's the first one. It's basically just like Rocket Patrol, except in reverse. So you are a UFO at the top of the screen, and then you've got, they call them spaceships that go across the bottom of the screen, and you can't aim left or right. It's just you always shoot straight down, and you just have to hit the spaceships as they go across the bottom of the screen, and that's it. The spaceships don't look like spaceships at all. It kind of looks like the body of a helicopter, but without like the tail and without the copter blades. So I don't know what it's supposed to be. The UFOs at the top look decent, but then you're just playing on like this blank blue background. And you do have like a kind of green border around the screen, which is nice. But yeah, that's like all that it is for that one. But then the next one, Sea Monster, is I think the exact same game, except just themed like you're in the ocean now. So you're at the top of the screen again, and you've got a boat now instead of UFOs. Weirdly enough, the boat looks like it should be like a 1700s merchant vessel or something, but it shoots like torpedoes. So it's very strange. It's like wood colored for the body. So, right. But I guess it's like a pirate ship. And it's shooting either torpedoes or cannonballs down at there's 2 different sprites of fish that go, and then they look actually really good. The ship also looks really good. But then at the bottom of the screen in that lane, there's like what I can only describe as a sea monster, because it's like I guess it's like a 6-legged green blob that just kind of goes across the screen.
Nice.
It's super weird. And then on this one, you have the blue background again, but there are these like little wavy things just in the back, which don't do anything. They're just for show. But I don't know. It's essentially the exact same game, even with the background is the same color blue and everything. But they switched out UFOs for ships and spaceships for fish and Sea Monster. So those 2 are basically the same game. And then the next 2 are also basically the same game, but I kind of like these 2. So on these 2, you're a turret or something at the top of the screen, shooting down again. But at the bottom of the screen, you have this kind of square. And you've got 2 different versions of this game. One was called Rebuild, and the other one's called Break It Down. So in one of the versions, the square is kind of full on all the sides. It's kind of like surrounded by bricks. And the bricks will go in a circular kind of rotation around the square. And every time you shoot, you break a brick. So it's kind of like a brick breaking game, but the square is rotating. So you have to kind of wait for it to be lined up in the middle for your shot to hit those last couple blocks, where basically the whole square is destroyed, but you have a couple just kind of going around the circle. And you basically just have to shoot them all down. But then in the rebuild variation, it starts out completely blank, and your shots build a brick when they hit, and then you have to build the square up until it's a full square again. So I don't know, I kind of like those ones. They're kind of like brick breaking mixed with building, and there's that, it's kind of like that weird feeling of like satisfaction when you see that last brick go into place and it's a full square again. I don't know.
Right, kind of like putting a puzzle together or something.
Yeah. So I kind of like this too. Both of them, all these games are 2-player, and I don't think there's 1-player versus AI. I think you can play by yourself for high score reasons, but it's mainly 2-player games. So those are those 4. And then the last one is super strange because it's called Shoot, and it's literally Shooting Gallery from Chris's cartridge, except instead of each person like shooting their own target that only they can hit, these targets go across the whole screen and anybody can hit them. And that's basically it. Like every time you shoot them, they change color. They can change speed, but they don't always change speed. But that's it. I think I don't know if it's a timing based thing or you have a certain amount of shots, but you can just keep shooting them forever. There's 2 targets that just go back and forth. But it does use the kind of laser beam shot that's like instantaneous, which does make it different from the other shooting games on this cartridge, which are all it takes a little while for the shot to go down the screen. So
Question, Ben.
Yeah.
Can you actually aim your shot, or does it just fire straight up?
It always just fires straight up.
Oh yeah, that's kind of boring, huh?
Yeah.
It would be interesting, I think, if you could angle your shot, because then you could almost be competing directly to shoot at the same target at the same time, type of deal, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's 2 targets on the screen, there's always like one in your kind of half. So I don't know. You always have shots to go for, but it would be definitely better if you could aim like at all. And with none of these games you can aim. It's always a straight shot. So that is a little bit of a disappointment. But let me get into my ratings. Let's start with gameplay. For all the games combined, I just gave gameplay a 2.5 out of 10. I thought for target shooting games, at least you have noticeably different themings around the same game. It's not just like sometimes I feel like when we get a cartridge like this, Atari would be like, here's a shooting game. Okay, here's one where there's 2 fish at the bottom instead of 1. This is a new game.
Right.
But at least this one's like it's UFOs, and then there's like a fish one, and then you've got the break it down and rebuild and the shooting laser beam one. So they're all like themed slightly different. I could see like instead of maybe you showing this to a friend and just kind of showing the one variation that you like, you would actually show them every single variation here because they're all different enough. So, you know, it's kind of fun. And with 2 people, it could be fun. For graphics, this is like the big hitter for me. I give it a 2.75 out of 10 because some of the graphics, and I do want to say some, look really good. Like the ships and the UFOs look really good. The fish look phenomenal. Probably the best looking fish on a console ever that we've seen. But then you've got like the sea monster, which looks like nothing. It looks like a weird blob. And then the spaceships look terrible. And then in the rebuild and shoot games, it's just bricks. Your turret on those games is like an L looking shape, so I don't even think it's supposed to be anything. And then you have the same like building things that were on Chris's game for the last one. So it's not all the sprites, but a lot of the sprites look really good. And I think it's just because the resolution's quite high with them. Like, I don't know, the ship has to be like this sprite is probably maybe like 10 by 10 pixels. And it's shrunken down though, so it looks higher res, you know? It doesn't like take up the entire screen. Like we've seen that where I think on the Atari 2600, like the Outlaw game, the characters on it took up like half of the screen because
right.
They just couldn't reduce that resolution. But here it actually looks pretty decent. There's not really any animations though, which is a little disappointing. Like fish could just like fly across the screen, you know? But all in all, I was pretty happy with the graphics. And by the way, there is a explosion kind of animation when you hit something. So they almost like disintegrate into a bunch of little pixels. And that'll happen with the spaceship one and the one where you hit fish. So it's interesting. But yeah, I thought graphically this console looks great. Sound though is a 1.5 out of 10. Like similar to Wes's. It's only like 2 sounds here. They're kind of like bleep bloop sounds, probably the same ones that Chris heard. And it's so weird because the exact same sounds are in the UFO game and the fish game. And I'm like, what are we firing here?
Right.
So yeah, I didn't really understand that, but yeah, the sounds need work. And for relevance, I didn't think it was particularly relevant. I just gave it a 4 out of 10. I think if you had this console, you should probably get this cartridge because it seems like one of the better ones, but I don't think it like influenced that much. And so overall, I just gave it a 2.25 out of 10. I kind of liked all the variations, weirdly enough, like UFO and the C1 were different enough aesthetically for me to enjoy them. And then I actually really liked the Rebuild and Break It Down games. They're probably my two favorite on the system as far as gameplay goes. I don't know, it's just fun to like get that last shot in. And then I think the last game, the shoot game, is basically a throwaway game, but at least you're getting something else on it for free. So overall, I enjoyed it, you know? It's not like the Bally Astrocade's football, which I think is going to be up there with my favorite games of the year, but it's like decent, you know. It's definitely worth getting if you have the console.
Nice, yeah. No matter how similar they are, there are 5 games on it, right? So
yeah, that's true.
For one cartridge, at least, it might be a decent value.
Yeah, you might say Break It Down and Rebuild are the same thing, but you know, they're opposite. So
do with that knowledge what you want.
Yeah. All right, Chris, you want to move into your next rated one?
Yeah, sure. And I think a smooth transition going from what might be the best value on the console to what might be the worst, which is Blackjack. And, you know, I don't want to rag on it, but I think you made a similar comment for the casino games. My impression when I play these types is just I'd rather use a deck of cards. You know, that ends up being my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
But you need a dealer, though. Like, the computer's dealing you now.
It's true. It's true. It isn't engaging enough in that way. I'll get into it though, and kind of. I think this one actually has some good pros that maybe past versions of Blackjack video games haven't had.
Okay.
It's a pretty standard Blackjack emulation, I think. 1 or 2 players can play, and then of course against the dealer. But there's also some additional gameplay variations that I think make it a little bit more exciting, especially if you actually play cards and play Blackjack. You can double, where you double your bet. If if your first 2 cards total to 11, you have that option to double your bet. And there's also an option to place an insurance bet if the dealer shows an ace as a part of their initial hand. So some more advanced, I think, gameplay in that regard than like a super basic Blackjack. And if I were just playing Blackjack myself, I basically wouldn't know to incorporate those rules even. So I feel like it gives you a little bit more of an interesting real Blackjack experience. There's 3 game modes, but really they just change the total pot of money and the size of the bet that you can place. So in terms of gameplay, it doesn't actually really change the experience too much, I don't think. I had attempted to play the emulator, ran into some technical issues with that, so I was able to watch gameplay on YouTube. And overall, I thought that it was pretty well done. The board was more interesting than I think previous iterations of Blackjack. And I think the graphics were overall better than like the Fairchild Blackjack that came out in 1976, where the cards weren't really cards at all. They kind of were just like rectangles that had a number on them,
Right.
or a letter. These were a better representation of a playing card. So more interesting, I think, visually in that way. Gameplay, I gave it what is probably a generous 2.5 out of 10. It's just Blackjack. But I gave it that 0.5 because I thought it had some nice attention to detail with some of those additional rules. But I probably, again, if I could, I would probably just rather play with cards and have to deal with like kind of the lag of playing the console where you're like waiting for the computer to say that it's shuffling. There's just like waiting in the digital sense that in a real game is there as well, but doesn't feel like hitting a key and then just waiting for something to happen.
Right.
Graphics, yeah, I gave a 3 out of 10. I think it's a step in the right direction as far as kind of a card game graphically. Sound, there is sound. There's sound of shuffling for the dealer. There's kind of this annoying clicking sound that becomes like kind of monotonous throughout the game. Like I think it was playing every time a card flipped over maybe, but just constant kind of like a click, click, click. And then there's also a sound for when like the dealer busts or went over 21. relevance, I said 2 out of 10. I don't think this probably changed anything in the landscape of blackjack games. They're all trying to create the same thing, but doing it better or worse. But I don't think this game brought anything to the table that really changes that. And then overall, a 2 out of 10. Something that if you had the console and you got the cartridge, something else to play, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way to get this one.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's with blackjack games, I mean, the convenience of being able to play it on a console has to try like so hard or have something that just makes it like weird and interesting to just be better than cards, because they're already so convenient. They're so simple. Like with some games where it's like taking a board game, you know, you're getting rid of all the setup and all that, and the video game has that going for it. But blackjack and other card games in a digital format does seem like they kind of got to try pretty hard to
For sure.
to get something done and be interesting in that genre.
Yeah.
There's also a degree of charm, I think, in like a card game or a board game that is difficult to get out of a digital version. Like we've played some stuff on like Tabletop Simulator, and I think we would probably all agree that there are perks like no setup, no cleanup, unless somebody keeps flipping the board. Which I don't know who would do that. But in general, the experience of in person for those sort of games that you're playing like by hand, I think is more enjoyable than kind of an emulation of it.
Right. You've got to find some way to get the digital aspects to outweigh what you're losing. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
of course, we're far, far away from this, but Mario Party is 3D, has visual excitement, characters that you recognize, and mini games to outweigh the fact that you're not like sitting down to play a board game.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's a great point.
Interesting to take a look at, though, every time we see one of these come up, and especially on home consoles, because they got to try extra hard.
Right.
I mean, it's been 2 years since we last. I don't think we've rated another blackjack since the Fairchild, right, Wes?
No, I don't think so. Unless we I think it was just a couple mentions for some new arcade cabinets. Yeah.
So it's just interesting to know after 2 years, the only thing that seems to be really changed is, you know, slightly better graphics, it seems like.
Right.
But interesting. All right. Should we kind of close it out here? I got one more honorable mention, and then Wes is going to do this last game. This one, the naming sounds phenomenal. The cartridge is a collection of 3 games: Pinball, Dungeon Hunt, and Blockout. And Dungeon Hunt, when I saw that, I was like, ooh, that could be really cool. Turns out it's Concentration. So and they already had that in another cartridge. So I don't know what was going on there. And then Blockout is like a Snake game. So they got Snake on here, but the frame rate's pretty bad. And then the Pinball one is actually a pretty good version of Pinball, I would say. It's one of the ones with the Pong paddles instead of the flippers. But it's actually like pretty decent, but I wasn't going to review the whole cartridge just because of that. So, yeah. Dungeon Hunt, biggest letdown of the whole system, I think.
Almost as sad as 1977 Dragon Maze, where there's not really a dragon, you know.
There was a dragon in that one,
but wasn't it a square?
It was a square.
I rest my case on that. But let's get into what, dare I say, is the most exciting cartridge of this whole console: Boxing. And it is just one game again, and it is exactly what you think it is, a boxing game. So let me just get into all the modes that are on this, because one of the great things about it is it did have 3 different game types, which actually kind of like made sense and gave you something new to do. They called it 6 game types total, but that was just because each of the 3 could be played either against a computer or against another player, which again is also a nice feature. But the modes were regular boxing, which is just 15 rounds of 60 seconds per round, 5-round bout, which is 5 rounds of 60 seconds per round, and then sparring, which is 1 round that's 99 seconds, but you can't get knocked out during it. And each of these modes, as I mentioned, could also be played against a computer, but they did the nice little theming and branding thing of giving each computer for each mode a name. So in boxing, you go up against Horrible Harry. In 5-round bout, you go up against Jabbing Joe, and in sparring, you go up against Slugger Sam. So I don't know. I like that. It's almost like your Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Give a name to the AIs that you're fighting in that.
Mm-hmm.
And the knockout system is basically one of the ways that you can get points. The main way you'll get points usually is just whoever was the most aggressive player during that round, which I'm guessing is most hits landed, but they aren't too specific about it in the instructions. But you can also get a KO, which at first I thought was just a point that ended the round, but it turns out a KO just ends the game. So if you're in round 2 and your opponent manages to KO you, they just win outright. So
does that happen if you land like a clean punch, or how do you what differentiated it getting a knockout?
So they did make it pretty difficult to do, which is nice, and it kind of makes sense that the reward would be so big for just winning the game. You have to hit the opponent 5 times in a row without getting hit in between, which this game is also very fast, so that ends up being pretty hard to do. Although as I was learning the game, the AI definitely KO'd me a few times, so it can happen if you don't know what's going on. But other than that, you're basically just blocking or throwing punches. There's only one style of punch. It's always to the head of the opponent, and you can only block up to block that, although you can either pull up or down on the joystick to do that block. The AI aggression seems the same on all games too, I think, except sometimes Jabbing Joe seemed like he was just like going hog wild and I couldn't keep up with him. So I don't think they were really difficulty settings. It was just the type of game. So getting into my ratings for this, it is a sideways view of boxing, which I think is the first time we've seen this. The only other real boxing game we've seen is the Atari prototype that didn't release. That was like a top-down view of boxing. This feels much more like a traditional old school fighting game, 2D fighting game. And the boxers do look like monstrous, blocky stickmen, but they do have the nice detail of boots, shorts, and gloves that are all the same color. And part of what makes this game look so great is how not realistic and silly everything looks. They're constantly like jittering between 2 sprites, which is like, the boxers sort of dancing and keeping on their toes. When the sprite gets hit, it looks like their chin just goes like straight up to the ceiling, like they just took a crazy uppercut. And their feet are just like floating in midair. And even when their feet are on the floor, they're always in bizarre ankle breaking positions. But I just love how ridiculous it looks. And it still actually does give you a decent bit of detail. And even the fact that it's so like frenetic and always switching between the 2 sprites does kind of give like this upbeat boxing sort of energy to the game. The background though is pretty plain. The ring looks nice itself. It's just this nice platform with some posts on the end of it, but the background is all black. There's no fans watching like in baseball, but the wacky movements of the characters do kind of help fill up that space. The characters also move pretty fast, which I like. It's not a really slow moving game like we see on a lot of consoles. And you can also tell when somebody's blocking and tell when they're throwing a punch, sort of. So there's some nice like visual cues there. I was going to try and describe how ridiculous their arm looks when they throw a punch, because it basically like they kind of got like 3 elbows and it just like does like a video game snake like line to punch the other person in the face. Really, you should just look it up because I can't do it justice, I don't think, explaining how bizarre it looks when they punch the opponent.
Isn't it like their arm kind of like grows another foot long than it should?
It does, yeah. It just like goes straight forward, goes straight up, and then goes straight forward again to punch him in the head. And it's like 3 times the length that it was previously. So it's really good. I recommend looking up a video of that. But all of that, I think because so much of it looks silly, it doesn't feel out of place. It just kind of feels fun. So I really liked it. And for sounds, somehow above everything else that all the other cartridges were doing on this console, this one had great sound.
What?
It was 2 out of 10 is what I gave it. And it definitely is still beeps, but the way that they're used in this game is so smart compared to, I would say, probably all of the other games. There's constant little taps for like the boxer moving back and forth. I'm guessing kind of similar to what Chris had with the Blackjack cards, but it really works for this theme. There's this weird, bassy, dramatic beep whenever someone gets hit, which is really good. It kind of makes you feel like you're in like a slow-mo or like a freeze frame in a comic with like a big kapow coming out of the speech bubble right next to it. And then there's also just like a solid beep for a punch or a block. And in addition to that, there's 3 tunes that also play, which totally blows my mind because we haven't even heard much music on any of these, I don't think. There's a tune for round end, there's a tune for round start, and then there's also one that plays if somebody gets a knockout. So even though it is all just beeps, I think they really work very well for this game. And now for the gameplay, of course, which is what makes Boxer so awesome. Well, I mean, and the graphics, I can't really knock those. But the gameplay, I gave a 3 out of 10 because even though I don't know how much life you could get out of this game realistically, it's just so goofy and fun. I could see people having a blast playing it against each other. I mean, I was having fun even just playing it against the computers who are ungodly good, or at least I was not able to beat them. But I just think in a 2-player match, it would be so hilarious and so fun. And I really like that there's the simple options of a full match if you want to really play for a while, or a shorter match, or sparring if you just want to like slug on each other and not have to worry about KOs. So even though there's only 3 options, I feel like it kind of gives you a decent amount of gameplay for this boxing type of game. And even though the gameplay is really simple, just blocking and punching, it seems like there could be some complexity if you're playing with another person and you're timing your blocks, or you're, faking out a block to do a punch, trying to get your spacing weird so you can do a sneaky punch from a distance, which I think is possible. And even if all that isn't possible, the main benefit of this is just that it's so weird and cartoony and it's fun. You're just like slugging the other player. So I don't know. It just works well enough that even though it's so simple, it's just easy to have a lot of fun with. Mm-hmm. And then for relevance, I gave it a 6 out of 10, just because I think this is the first side view boxing game that we've seen. And it honestly feels like a super, super simplified, like 2D fighting game from the 90s. You've got blocking and you've got punching and you've got moving back and forth across the screen. So even though we're obviously a long way from there, and this game may not have been popular enough to really influence anything else, it does feel a lot like a fighting game, and it's doing a lot of that fighting game stuff right on a console. It took me a while to realize it, but I feel like just the addition of a blocking button in a fighting game is kind of like, holy cow, we've never really had like a block button in a fighting game before. We've never really had a fighting game before, and so this isn't really fully in that genre, and who knows if it influenced other games, but definitely deserves some cred because it's at its core like a 1978 very simple fighting game. Mm-hmm. And overall, that left me with a 2.75 out of 10. The game is just wild. It looks ridiculous, and it's super fast, punching, blocking all the time, and I just love it. Even though the gameplay is super simple, I think there's just enough variations to give you a good bit of fun with it, and the goofy graphics really just set this great atmosphere for the game where, they're allowed to make everything blocky, and it doesn't have to look great because it's still just funny and feels good. And even just being able to, and one of my favorite features of it is that after the bell rings, it makes you slowly walk backwards, towards the rope. But if you don't want to be a civilized human boxer, you can just start punching the whole time you're backing up and staring at your opponent. And that's just extra points in my book. The computer, since they're on like a random timer to always punch, they're just staring you down and punching the air the whole time they back up. And yeah, I don't know, that just was like the really capped off the whole experience for me. So yeah, that is boxing. I mean, even if it's like not a 100% great game, if you break it down, it's just so fun and weird. Definitely worth checking out.
All right, cool. Nice. I'm glad we got to do that one today. Such a unique one.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I do want to know your guys' overall thoughts on the whole console. I'll tell you mine real quick. I think the games are kind of a mixed bag, although I feel like some of the games they're kind of like expected to be on consoles. Like Blackjack, every console has that. Tic-tac-toe, Hangman, every game has that. A lot of them have the casino games and the board games. So like the worst ones are kind of like ones that people expect. But I think for me, the good games show promise to me that this console could be one of the better consoles, around in 78, but it's missing some of the most important games. Like there's no gunfight game, which is like it kind of needs that in my opinion. And there's no tank game, there's no airplane game, there's no racing games. So without those things, it kind of just feels like incomplete to me, and brings it down as far as how good it is. Because I need to have like a racing game on here. I need to have a shooting game where I can like move my character. So yeah, I think it had promise, but if this is kind of all the games for it -1, it's not gonna ever really do that well, in my opinion. Like as far as its relevance or how good it is compared to the other consoles that have a massive lineup of games at this point.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely makes sense. It kind of feels like they got all the weird, original, off the wall ideas that we usually like to see, but none of the core essentials, other than the ones that we are a little tired of seeing that you mentioned. But
like baseball, like they had to do that, right?
Right. Yeah, and even not a I mean, maybe they knew the writing was on the wall for Pong, but I'm surprised to not even just see like a straight up Pong. There's the pinball Pong game on there, but none of that
they
on
had
here.
the breakout one, I guess, but
True, yeah, and that is sort of a variation on that.
But what'd you feel overall like compared to the Astrocade and stuff, Wes, and the 2600? Where does it rank for you right now?
With the 2600, it's weird because I know that eventually it's going to be like crazy good, but I feel like it still hasn't hit that yet. Like it's got good games on it, but they still haven't figured out how to use that hardware. So this is definitely above the Atari for me right now, kicking Fairchild out as well. So unfortunately, but I think the Astrocade still can do a lot more cool stuff, and I don't know, has some of those more core games on it, and the benefit of being Bally, so they can just take all the midway games and put them right on there. So definitely, it's still doing some great stuff. And honestly, I'd put this above the 2600 for right now.
I think I would probably go Astrocade and then 2600 and then this, just because you do have like sometimes like 30 variations on the
well, that's a good point.
The 2600, which that does make a big difference, but it's definitely close. I'll say that it's not like it's a bad console by any means.
No,
it's not like the RCA,
right? Yes, yeah. I'll admit to some recency bias because I haven't looked at a Atari 2600 game in a while.
I think the last one we did was Slot Racers, which was not the best one.
Right.
And I did Flag Capture, which again was not a good one. What did you think of it, Chris? As far as 78 console gaming goes.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I think I am seeing or noticing just a slow progression towards like what I would have thought of as an old video game.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the stuff in the early 70s was like almost prehistoric in terms of like graphics or gameplay.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're inching towards the point where like if I found like a little handheld at my house and it emulated one of these, I would have been like, oh, okay, cool. This is okay.
Right.
The games look a little better, the graphics look a little better.
At least they're all in color now.
Yeah, there's color. I feel like we're closer in the timeline than it feels to the point at which games really start to wow us, I think.
Yeah, dude. So I've been doing 79 research, and Galaxian comes out next year, which is crazy because that game, I don't know what scores it'll get, but it looks good. Like Galaxian's a pretty good looking game.
Okay.
And that comes out in a year.
Right. That's pretty crazy. And I think that's where, as I listen to the episodes or when I occasionally am playing the games or watching the YouTube of games. That's where I kind of feel like we're at. Is it kind of feels like it's going to be a big bang almost, where the games just get so much better, and we're kind of inching there. But I think this console leaves something to be desired. The games aren't that interesting, frankly, right? But graphics are better, and I think the games are just smoother than they were early in the 70s. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'd say it's going to be super interesting to see what the first game is that really takes it to that level. I feel like it's probably going to be Galaxian, but it might be something before then. I don't know. But we'll know because we'll cover them and find out. So
Cool.
It is coming up, and we'll have to definitely get you back on right when that happens because it'll be a very fun time.
Yeah, for sure. Always happy to hop on for an episode.
Yeah. So quick review: we covered how many cartridges was this? 11 cartridges, and then Rocket Patrol, which came with the system. We reviewed the Brickdown Shooting Gallery one, Baseball, UFO Sea Monster, Break It Down, Rebuild and Shoot, Blackjack, and Boxing, which was a surprisingly cool one. So I'd say the ones that we reviewed were definitely the better ones, and I enjoyed doing it. It's always cool to see a brand new console because you just never know what you're going to get. So
Absolutely. And so we hope you guys all enjoyed taking a look at this. The MP-1000 from APF. You might not have known it existed, but here it is. And it actually did some decently cool things as we inch our way closer to 1979. We're happy to have Chris on for our 2-year anniversary of the podcast. And make sure to check out our website to take a look at our journey, everything that we've covered so far, and tons of information on where we get our information as well. Check us out on Twitter to find out when a new episode goes live or if we're not posting that week, and send us an email if you have any questions.
with that, we'll see you next week.
See you all next time.